I'm Mariam. I'm a co-director and co-founder of Tbilisi Pride. I live and work in the country of Georgia. The talks about building civil society resilience is very necessary as never before, I would say, because we are observing the really worrying trend around the world and in Europe, where we are located, which is the tendency of democracy backsliding, coming together with shrinking civic spaces, with the backsliding just falling on the shoulders of civil society. We see that NGOs, the activists, human rights defenders, activist groups, social movements are attacked. We are being marginalized. We are being targeted by disinformation campaigns, propaganda campaigns, by illiberal governments or by informal far-right groups, ultra-conservative movements. And in this situation, when basic human rights and freedoms are under attack and democracy backsliding is real, it is important to rethink the ways civil society works and to become more resilient. And sometimes we forget this because we have so many programs and projects to do. We have, I don't know, our campaigns, our conferences to organize, trainings, different, legal aid, the projects, there's so many amazing things we do. But just like doing this work we were doing is not enough because we have additional attacks and we need to think about resilience proactively. We need to think like, what else can we do to adapt to these new realities that we have in our region or in the world, which is unfortunately the worsening of democracy situation and civil society kind of freedoms.
What are 5 most important elements of resilience when the future of the movement is falling on your shoulders?
So civil society, non-governmental organizations, activist groups, academia, all of this, civil society in wider terms, this is the sector which is protecting usually democracy, is being watchdog, is upholding human rights, and is critical, it's critical, it's independent, it's watching the government and different groups closely. And I see civil society as the defender of democracy and human rights. And of course, when democracy situation is worsening and we see the far-right uprising or these really worrying trends, civil society is the first sector attacked because illiberal governments, they want to silence you because you are the first one who speaks up against injustices, against human rights violations, against the issues with democracy. So the first ones are we, human rights defenders, or let's say wider civil society, who are really attacked to be silenced, to be controlled, in order for these groups, whether government or other informal groups, to maintain their power, to maintain their influence, to bring down the democracy without barriers created from the civil society. So yes, we see that in Europe, in other regions of the world, civil society is the one that's attacked. For example, let's take the example we see in our region in Europe, Central Asia, that so-called foreign influence agent laws are being adopted by the parliaments, especially in the countries where Russian influence is bigger. In Kyrgyzstan, they just adopted the law. In Georgia, they are trying to adopt this law, even though last year we had mass protests and campaigning, and we forced the government to withdraw this bill. This year, they brought it again. And in Belarus, they already have it. In Russia, they already have it. But in other countries, they are trying to adopt this bill. And the goal, of course, is to control, to silence, to intimidate the civil society. These bills, these laws have very, very anti-human rights provisions, and they can come in anytime they want in the organization, demand any kind of documentation, including, for example, personal information of, we have registration papers of community members, LGBTQI people, very sensitive information, which will get in the hands of security security services, of police that we don't trust, especially in the countries like Georgia, where we don't have full democracy, you know. So these are the bills and the legislative initiatives, also smear campaigns that they are trying to use against civil society. And this is the situation, and I want to come to your to answer to your question. This is the situation when we realize as a civil society, just continuing our routine work, which is like organizing, providing services to the community members or organizing different long-term projects, this is not enough because the reality is changing. We are under attack. We are undermined. Our work is targeted. We are marginalized. There are smear campaigns against us. And here we need to think like, how do we adapt to the new reality? How we become stronger? How we become more resilient? And resilience is the phenomenon exactly when we think, how can we adapt to the new reality, be more stronger, be more sustainable, more strategic? And here we come to the different like key components of resilience that me and my Hungarian colleague brought it together when we were attending Megaphone conference in 2023. And thank you for inviting me. It was really like a transformative experience to meet so many civil society leaders from many countries and to discuss these topics. And these 5 elements of resilience, of course, there could be many, but we think that these are the key ones. First, this is physical and cybersecurity. Second, it's mental well-being. Third, it's strategic communications. Fourth, it's coalition building and coordination among different civil society groups. And fifth, it's, I would say, financial sustainability. And to adapt, to be strategic, and to coordinate, it's key in this environment. If we don't do this, we won't survive. Because on the other side, we see the groups that have unlimited financial resources, like they have so much money, so much funding, they have influence, they have different kind of resources, and they are really well coordinated. And if we want to oppose this, we also need to be strategic. We need to be coordinated and to unite our resources together within this wide civil society that we have. And take care of ourselves, to proactively think, how can we take care of each other and ourselves? So these are the 5 elements that we need to discuss when we talk about to be more resilient, to adapt and to be stronger in these really, really difficult times that we face in Europe and beyond.
Element 1, importance of cybersecurity and safety.
Of course, security, especially physical security, is crucial. You know, we need to stay healthy, to stay secure, safe. This is without this, any work, there is no point in doing any kind of strategic communications or coalition building if we are not secure and safe. So we need to proactively think about how can we and what can we do for this. From my experience over the years, like we've been prioritizing, I don't know, organizing different campaigns and educational work or advocacy, which is very important, but we paid less attention to physical and cybersecurity, and we've had our communications compromised, or we had the situations where we were physically attacked and we had to be evacuated. And we really have not thought through every scenario what could potentially happen, because sometimes we have this wishful thinking, I call that, oh, it will be all right, you know. We humans and human psychologists set up in a way that we don't want to imagine the worst scenario. And this is important to think about. And what we can do is really get together as a staff of the organization or as the members of the movement, with activists, with our teams, and to think about physical and cyber security protocols that we need to together create, maybe with the help of experts, to agree on the rules, like what do we follow, what is the must, what are the basic rules that we follow. For example, we have cybersecurity guideline within the organization that we've agreed what are the platforms we use, what are the platforms we like very strictly refuse to use, how do we communicate, what are the basic guidelines that we follow. And in this way we try to secure our communications. In this way we try to be like have the plan in every situation when our office might be attacked. In this way we try to protect the personal information of the communities we serve that we have filed online or offline, right? So having comprehensive security guidelines, and which is also not only on the paper. This is another issue that sometimes we write down these perfect rules and plans on the paper, on the guidelines, but we forget to properly implement those. And this is also important, that we should have the plan how we implement, because once I discovered in my team we have very good internal code, conduct code, but nobody reads it. Even though we have it, it's very accessible for everyone, people don't read it. So we started to make this tradition to send once in few months, to send these internal regulations and guidelines on the email to remind people that we need to update our knowledge, we need to read it, or sometimes even to take out some parts of it, some interesting facts from our internal document, and send it separately, chunk by chunk, so people absorb this. Because when you have so much work, it's very difficult to go through this 30 pages or this kind of big, internal documents and guidelines. So it's important also to have a plan. How do we implement these guidelines? How do we make sure everyone's aware, everyone's following these rules we've agreed? But especially in Georgia, it's crucial to protect our communications. We had recently the leak from our Zoom meeting, and maybe it was not from the cyber security issue, but some person maybe like screenshotted the meeting, and it could also happen. So that is why we need to think always when we talk online or when we meet, like what to say, what to not say, how do we protect our communications to minimize the risks. There will be always the risks, and we still need to organize the community. We need to mobilize as a movement. We cannot just like cancel every meeting because we have paranoia or it will leak. No, but we need to have measures to minimize the risks of exposure. So yeah, I won't go into very small details, but planning our physical and cybersecurity measures to identify what are the safer platforms. For example, Signal, which we use. This is one of the most safest communication like messenger platform today. And to plan the scenarios when we organize demonstration or event, like if we are physically attacked, what do we do in this situation? Do we trust the police? Do we call them? Or do we have the private security? Or like do we have the emergency SOS chats where we our like team members, we always like gather in this chat, and if something dangerous is happening, we notify each other in the SOS chat. So there are many different mechanisms that we need to be aware and to plan. What do we use in our work, which is unfortunately often attacked? And I have a few examples, but for example, I will bring one of the last experiences from my work. When the government had smear campaign against Tbilisi Pride, we suddenly, some of us were at the office, but some of us not, and they were planning to come. And we had a situation when the propagandistic TV, far-right media, they showed up at our office doors. And they were trying to get the comments from us and illegally record us. And if we did not have security trainings and security measures in the place, we would not be as successful as we went through this incident. we discovered that they arrived because we had security cameras in front of our office in the street, but also near our door at the entrance of our office door. And we saw in the cameras that these people were here and they were planning to come to us to force us to give the comment. But also the second measure that we had in the place when we discovered this, we used the SOS emergency chats that I just mentioned, because some staff members, nobody is checking all the chats and all the communications, but we have very strict rule. This is a very special chat, and no matter what, if you see the notification there, you check it. And this is a very special group chat, right? At SOS chat, and everyone we messaged when we discovered this that there is far-right media trying to break into our office and get the comments, and they are intimidating us. So whoever was planning to come out to our office, don't until we tell you so. And some of the key leaders of Tbilisi Pride who are really famous and they were waiting for them, for example, Anna Subelia and Tamar Jakeli, they didn't come to office, and in this way we minimize the risk of propagandistic TV media having our getting the interviews from us and recording illegally our appearances. So this was and then they got tired after 40-50 minutes and they left, and this was done according to our protocol. Another a small example, we had the training, we had the workshop for regional journalists. We brought all these people from regions of Georgia to talk to them about countering disinformation and propaganda related to LGBTQI equality and human rights. And we were out of town, and suddenly these 3 TV channels, pro-government TV channels, come to our meeting. They surround us, and it was really intimidating experience. And some of the workshop participants who are from small towns, and they were really scared. And we tried and we worked a lot not to have the panic within the workshop. We had this 3-day workshop, and it was a mix of security measures, but also thinking about strategic communications. And when we were leaving the building, there was a temptation to leave this meeting very secretly, to bring the cars inside the venue and to sit down and escape very secretly. But here, some of us, including some of the workshop participants, said that if we leave in this way very secretly, and if we don't go out just as regular people that we were planning before, it will look very bad. It will look like we were really planning something criminal or something terrible, like they were saying on TV, and it will be counterproductive to behave this way. So what we did here, we divided people in 2 groups, because there were some people who have legitimate concerns about their security. They didn't want to be recorded or to physically counter these aggressive journalists because of their security, physical security, but also their reputation. They had to go to the small town and villages, and if they were recorded, they would be really undermined and marginalized. So whoever was scared and had the concerns over security, we brought the car and they left the building without seen by anybody. But those who were ready for this, 10 or 12 participants, we left the building. We were very proud that we were attending this meeting, that we were left this venue with regular entrance, and they were recording us. And it seemed like the in TV coverage that, okay, these are real people, they don't look dangerous, and there's nothing to it was not a conspiracy theory. Some of us even gave the interview, very brief interview, very thoughtful and strategic, with very short comments. So this is how we minimize both security risks, but also in terms of thinking strategic communication, how to not to let them to create the picture that supports their theory.
Element 2, psychoemotional and mental well-being.
This is exhausting, really overwhelming to think about so many things together, to be aware about all components of resilience. And we have situations when some of them come in together, you know, and it's activist work or working at civil society. It's super. It's often leading to burnout. And I personally, in 2019, I experienced terrible professional burnout. And I made promise to myself and to my team that I would never allow to lead myself to the same situation. And I would take care of my mental well-being and also support my team because I'm the director of the organization. And I'm the leader, and sometimes maybe all of the employees and workers don't think this proactively, but it's my obligation to think about well-being of my team. And what we do, some of the measures are some of the practical tips I would have. First, trying to offer your team members individual therapy sessions, which are expensive and not everyone can afford. So what we do is we cooperate, for example, with Human Rights House Tbilisi, who have the program funding for human rights defenders and activists, and they support, they cover these therapy sessions for them. So we refer our activists to them to get the help and aid they need. This is one thing. The second thing, which is very important, is as a group, as a team, we need group therapy. And we need to reflect with the help of professional person who facilitates this work. Actually, I was inspired by Budapest Pride experience, and this is how we started to do this, because they shared experience how once in 2 weeks they have group therapy sessions and they discuss the internal but also external pressures and dynamics, and they explore like what is going on, what feelings they have, like, and they work this out. They have open communication with the help of professional facilitator, you know. So once in a while we try to have group therapy sessions, which like last one we did a month ago, and also to have retreats. But unfortunately, this kind of work is underfunded. Nobody often wants these donors. They don't want to spend so much money on like retreats or, you know, therapies for the teams. They prefer to have like, I don't know, international conference organized or this, I don't know, strategic communications campaign organized, but they don't. We've had numerous cases when they reject the initiative when we want to do retreat, which is like very much needed. We need to survive, you know. It's not just to have fun, but it's like crucial for us to maintain our mental well-being and to take care of ourselves. So we continue doing this serious work or whatever. So I always advocate with the donor organizations to take it seriously, that this is like crucial and equal to other work we are doing. So yeah, to have this gathering groups, mental kind of group therapy sessions, retreats, planned. Like when we plan usually strategic, we do strategic planning, what we do for the next year. And among like service providing or I don't know, camps and all of these activities, talking about organizational development and the mental well-being of our employees or our activists and movement members. This is the crucial part of well-being.
Element 3, strategic communications.
So the thing is that I think strategic communications is the crucial thing now in 21st century, when we live in the post-truth era, when it's so hard to tell what's truth and what's lie anymore. There's so many disinformation campaigns and so on. Strategic communications is the crucial thing that we need to uphold and implement. But before, like, this is quite a new thing, I think. It developed this tool during the last few years. Before, NGOs or social movements, we were more, I think we had communications, not strategic, but just communications. We were talking about things that sound, okay, they sound good to us. Okay, I think we should say this, but this was rarely based on evidences. This was rarely evidence-based campaigning to measure what concepts, what words, which individuals should speak, what should be mentioned or what not. And strategic communications is being more strategic in terms of when should we speak and when should we stay silent? Who should be the person who speaks on behalf of this cause? Sometimes we might say that, okay, these leaders of like big mainstream NGOs, now you need to step down a bit and we need to let the grassroots organizations or service providers speak up. So there are different contexts and different situations when we need to decide many things in order to be strategic and to measure everything. I know it takes a lot of resource, a lot of money, a lot of time to have evidence-based communications and campaigns, but this is crucial. I will tell you one example. Last year, when we were measuring, we wanted to have the campaign in support of equality and human rights and LGBT and so on. And we had public opinion polls and also focus groups implemented. And what we discovered is that if you talk about equality as such, Georgian people do not resonate this concept, you know, they just don't have this in their brains, in their heart. This is not the concept familiar to Georgian people. But if we talked about freedom of speech, or just generally freedoms, this was more because of our history, because of our many social, economic, cultural, you know, many complex stories and indicators. This was more understandable for people. They felt more emotional for this. So, for example, when we have several truths, we fight for equality, for freedoms, it just, you know, strategic communications and measuring, examining evidences helps you to choose the right words and concepts, which will help you to have proper communication with your own people, you know. And also there is strategic communications. It helps you to think and to be aware what's your opponent's propaganda, what's your opponent's propaganda traps. Another example, last year, when the government was trying to adopt this foreign influence agent bill, they were saying that this is transparency bill. So we are doing this for transparency. Oh, and you know, this sounds great. Like transparency is very good value. Like people are, okay, transparency. So there was a temptation to step into their propaganda field and trap and to say, no, this is not transparency bill. We are transparent already. And we to talk about transparency, which is their communication frame. That is their frame. And what we should remember, and strategic communication tells us, never repeat your opponent's communication frame and propaganda, because if you repeat it and if you start defending yourself, this is losing. You need to bring your alternative communication frame. And what we did, we said that this is a Russian bill. This is the bill to jeopardize and sabotage European Union membership and to limit and to silence civil society. So we had completely other, like alternative communication frame and narratives, which were not directly opposing and debating their frames, but proposing our alternative kind of communication frame and narratives. So strategic communication, this is this huge discipline with many subcomponents that we need to think about. We need to be educated about this. We had to take courses, to take trainings, to meet strategic communications experts. And it took us like at least 2 years to have proper understanding and to make it a part of our everyday work. For example, before we would just write the statement about something is happening, right? Some human right is being violated or something is happening. We would just quickly write the statement and issue it. Now, when we write the statement, we undergo the test, how the propaganda media would use each sentence, how they would misinterpret it. And when we do this test, we remove some words or we rewrite the text in a way that we minimize the risk them misinterpreting things or using it for propaganda. So yeah, it's crucial to base the campaigns, to base our communications on public opinion polls, on focus group results, on media monitoring. We also do. But this, to be true, we don't do this. We are 10 people. We are a small organization. We cannot do this huge sociological research studies. So what we recommend is that to cooperate with the big organizations that they are already doing public opinion polls or focus groups with this NDI or some research company or partners, to ask them to include your issues, and they are always open to put some questions in their public opinion polls or to do focus groups for us. And this is very important to have in mind, and we don't have to do everything ourselves. There are the resources, there are organizations doing stuff, and we could just coordinate with them. I think we always had dilemmas with this, that strategic communications, it's a bit of a very rational, pragmatic, maybe a cold approach. And activists, we are like very emotional, we sometimes, we are, it's difficult for us to always refrain from emotions and to be very strategic or like cold-hearted or something. But it's important to understand that strategic communication is a tool, and everyone uses in a different way. Strategic communication, sometimes if we talk about illiberal groups, if we talk about Georgian government, they use it in a very unethical way, and they use it, they do propaganda, right? And it depends, like every group that uses strategic communications, first we start like, what is our principles, what is our values, what are our red lines? And you can use it in a very good way, in a very smart way, but you could use it also in a very unethical way. It's just a tool, and every group will adjust these tools on their kind of values and on their to their team. And for us, we like this tool, but also we understand that we might not always be able to follow this rule, this tool. And sometimes we see that some groups some activist groups express their emotions, and they don't always, they are not always very strategic, and sometimes they go very radical. Which maybe it was not in our kind of strategic communications plan, but that is okay. We should understand that our civil society, our movements, it's very diverse, and sometimes being radical, even expressing emotions, is also legitimate, and we don't judge anyone for this. But we also, I personally also think that being emotional or being angry or this kind of thing, this can also be strategic. This can also be done in strategic ways. But because unfortunately, in the times we live in these times when there is this huge propaganda and TV outlets, and they are using everything we do in such ill way, in such a bad way, that we need to be smart, or we will really lose some of the fights we have. For example, now in Georgia, they are trying to adopt anti-LGBTQI propaganda bills, very similar to Russian-Hungarian models. And if we are not strategic, and if we just start screaming and shouting about this, and if we don't make this issue, how to say, very broad for many groups. For example, there in this bill, they are talking about restricting peaceful assembly rights, there is censorship, there is different things that are relevant not only for LGBTQI community, but for the wider groups, for the artists, for the publishing houses, for different groups that use the assembly rights. So now our approach is to make this issue wider, to make this issue close to everyone, to tell people that this will touch you, not only LGBTQI community, but this will be like control and restrict the freedoms for many, many different groups of the society. Like, this is our strategic communications plan. And it's important that if we have such plan, that many different groups and many activists are on the page and are consistent with this plan. And this is very difficult. This is the most difficult part when we talk about strategic communications, because if different groups are not on the same page and more or less consistent with the plan, with the narratives, with the main messages, then usually the communications are chaotic and we lose the war with this big propaganda machine. And in order to be consistent, then it's important how we lead the process with this so much diverse civil society and activist groups. And here it's important to do this in a democratic way, and to lead this process in a democratic way. And what we try now is not to be just 5-10 activists who decide what is the strategy for the entire community, but to make sure that all the key groups, all the key organizations, activist groups are involved in this, and we have legitimacy when we offer this draft plan, maybe about strategic communications around this bill, that we have the legitimacy from many different community members, from many different groups. Because if you don't, and if this process is not done in a democratic way, then nobody will follow this strategic communications plan or something like that, and you will receive a mess. So I know I talked about many different things, but what I think that strategic communications is a great tool that can be used in ethical ways, not in a way sometimes politicians and the governments do, that it's like very fake, it's very political technologies, not political. Strategic communications for me is different from just doing this political technology work and PR, and to just say big things because they work, or and to be populistic. This is different. It's for me, strategic communications, it just, you have several truths and maybe choose the one that more resonates with people. You can talk about equality, freedom, but you can talk about so many things, but maybe choose the one that more resonates with people, or you have several speakers and to divide, like maybe this person, and measure and decide who will talk about who. When I was at Megaphone Conference 2023, I had this amazing activist from Estonia. And when we were talking about strategic communications and to choose the right messengers, she was like, oh my God, this is revelation for me. I've never thought about this and we have never discussed this, because I always go, this is always me that goes on TV about every topic. And for example, I go and talk about mothers, how mothers have issues, certain issues, and I don't even have a child. I don't belong like a young queer activist with blue hair, and maybe I don't resonate with the mothers or something like this. And yes, I was like, exactly, that's what I'm talking about. We need to think through about these details, like who speaks about what words do we use, what not, and to measure this and be more smart. Because if we are this like emotional, always emotional radical like activists who like fall into government propaganda trap all the time, this won't benefit us, and these regressive bills, legislative initiatives or something will work. And yeah, this is to be smarter and to be more strategic in our communications. I think this is key.
Element 4, building alliances.
I think, again, in the situation of democracy backsliding, increasing attacks on civil society, uniting our resources, uniting our minds, coming together and building coalitions or building alliances, this is crucial to survive. If we just continue doing our work separately and not together, we will lose this war. And this is what we are doing in Georgia since last year. we have created the CSO platform consisting of 23 non-governmental organizations, but also beyond this, we are in touch with hundreds of organizations, but these 22 or 23 organizations are the key members of the platform. And we also have the working groups. We have the legal group, lawyers group, we have the strategic communications team, we have the team of foreign affairs team, the events organizing, so many different working groups, and different activists, different organizations come in to these working groups according to their interests and their abilities. And we all work together in order to counter this disinformation propaganda and to build and to fight for our cause. And this has been crucial, including uniting our funds as well. Sometimes, and we have not been doing this before. For example, we need to do one certain campaign, let's say for to support our EU membership. And instead of doing small campaigns, how that by NGOs, when we do like these 8 videos, one done by one organization on their Facebook page, and it's watched their own like small bubble, instead of these small campaigns run by separate NGOs, let's join our funds and our human resources and everything and do one big campaign that will reach the thousands of people. And this is one small example, but building alliances, coming together in this difficult time around certain issues, it's crucial. But here are, of course, the risks. Of course, it's a very difficult job to build the alliances, to build the coalitions, because all of these groups, all of these organizations are so different, right? They do work on different issues, but they have different political ideology. There are more leftist groups. There are more, maybe, I don't know, a bit right wing or like neutral, like in terms of political ideology. So there is a very diverse background and thinkings, and it's always risky to come together. But what we've done is to focus on issues and to have issue-based, maybe in this very like crisis situation that we have, to be issue-based unions. And right now, this CSO platform we also have very like leftist organizations, but we also have other like more maybe liberal groups and organizations, because there are some issues that are crucial for us, that unite us in this moment, and we all focus on this. And it's important to think that right now we are living all over the world, in Europe, in the US, in our like Eastern Europe, in Central Asia. We are in the situation that it's not the time to be divided and to fight over ideologies or like these things, because it's, for me, it looks like a civilization, like it's a war of values. I always say, because I heard this from one amazing Ukrainian activist, that this is not just a physical war going on right now between Ukraine and Russia, but this is a war of values. This is a war of civilizations, and we need to be smart in this situation, because if Russia, if this illiberal ideology, if this very disinformation, propaganda, all of these terrible things, if we don't oppose this together and unite more, this means that we will lose the bigger war that's going on, and we need to think globally, and this is very important in this situation. And so what we all realize, that we are opposing pro-Russian, ultra-conservative, rich and influential groups, and we need to unite, even though maybe we have different ideologies and some thinkings. Right now, we need to build alliance and together oppose these terrible, terrible initiatives or smear campaigns, or dragging our country back to the Russian past and back to and these anti-democratic scenarios. So yeah, building alliances and coalitions and uniting our human resources, our funds, our minds, it's crucial right now. And that's what we are doing in Georgia. And I think that should be done in every country by every civil society that wants to be more resilient and effective in their work. Yeah, of course, I agree that it is very difficult. These processes are very emotional and very challenging for every human being, especially for us who are like on the front lines of defending democracy and human rights in our own countries and cities. But I think that we can reduce the human cost that we pay by exactly focusing on the resilience components that we discussed, and by constantly planning and then trying to take care of ourselves and of our colleagues. But your question contained very important topic and point about having the building the alliance in the crisis mode. And it's very different from the regular times, right? And usually we are good with maybe mobilizing and uniting when it's like crisis and it's hardcore attack or like something really terrible is happening, and we get together and we do things. But it's what I've seen from my experience in Georgia, it's always difficult to maintain after this crisis goes down a little bit, to maintain these alliances, to maintain these coalitions, to be as coordinated and as united as you were during the crisis mode. And to be honest, I don't have all answers and all recipes for everything, but it's also has been a challenge for us how to maintain these alliances when it's not as bad and we are not in the fully crisis mode. And maybe this is the question that all of us need to ask ourselves and have more discussions in the activist circles. But last year we had this amazing alliance which did so many things, and we won, and the government stepped down. They dropped the bill. And then what we formally maintained this platform, but in real life, we rarely did something together anymore. We got back to our routine works, our projects, our organizations, and we stopped these critical discussions. We stopped these campaigns or activities that we were doing together. And then what we saw, that because we stopped this work, government again brought this bill, and now we are activated again and we are in the fight mode and we are together. But we could have done so much great work together all this year and made such impact to maybe prevent this bill being introduced again. So I think that we should also be trying not to only unite and do this kind of mutual work and coordinated work during the crisis times, but also beyond. And but also I understand it's very difficult for civil society leaders, for activists, like to be always perfect. Sometimes we get tired, we make mistakes. We also in this platform, we have made mistakes. Maybe sometimes we did things that it was not fully decided by democratic way, and there are issues of maybe engaging with many diverse groups of broad society, and this remains as a challenge. And that there will be mistakes on the way, but we should not beat up ourselves, I think, too much, because we are opposing such influential groups with so much money and so much resources, and we are here like civil society with like minimal resources and with so much work, and activists are so overstretched. Like we do so many things and we fight so many fights, and it's also okay to make mistakes sometimes, but it's important that we learn from our mistakes, that we reflect, and to try to lead this process, which is alliance building, which is strategic communication, so on and so forth, in a democratic way, and to make sure that many different communities are heard, many different groups are involved in decision making, and the process is very important. Of course, the end result is crucial, that we, I don't know, reject the bill, or I don't know, win the information war, but the process is crucial because we continue life after this specific, you know, fight. There is more to come. So if we ruin the relationships between each other, or if we do things in an undemocratic way, and it will uphold the culture that is actually damaging, we should always think about long-term results, not only short-term result, which is like countering the bill or something like this, but how these activities we do and how this process that we build will influence our lives and our activism in longer term. So yeah, this is very challenging, very tiring. It requires lots of discussions, lots of thinking, lots of, you know, efforts to make the right moves in this process. But we try, and hopefully we will get better at it.
Element 5, financial resources and sustainability.
Yes, it's, I think, a very important part of resilience as well, to think and proactively kind of plan how do we ensure the financial sustainability for our organization, because we've struggled at our organization because of lack of planning and proactive thinking about financial sustainability, with just surviving from one project before the next one, and it's very stressful. I think this is one of the most stressful things I've experienced in activism, in civil society work, to be constantly worrying, how do you maintain your staff? How do you not have salary gaps? How do you continue your projects? Because often the projects are short-term, they are like small amounts and just 10 or 12 months projects, and then you need to find a new one to continue. And this is so exhausting and so stressful because you have so much work to do. You have so much intellectual work to do, so much things to worry about, and at the same time you are worried how to survive in terms of finances, right? So it's important to take this part seriously and to always think about financial sustainability, to maybe seek for core funding. I know all the NGOs, everyone, of course, dreams about core funding, but we should try it, and there are opportunities for it. And the core funding gives us the flexibility to not to think about maybe project activities that were planned 2 years ahead, because context changes so much. And this is what I'm talking to donor organizations often, and I'm advocating these ideas with them. You know, you write these projects like a year or 2 years ago, and then the context changes a lot so fast, and some of the activities that you have written there becomes totally irrelevant. There are the new needs that arise, and you need some flexibility. So core funding usually gives you this flexibility to pay salaries for your staff, but to be flexible, whatever you decide in the specific context, to organize the activities that you think are relevant. And this is recently, actually, we managed to secure the core funding, and it was a huge process. It was difficult, but we managed so. And this was also with the help of fundraising officer that we worked with. And this was also the plan of financial sustainability for our organization, because before we didn't have, for example, a specific person for fundraising, and we were struggling with it, but we prioritized this area. And we worked a lot in this regards. And finally, we managed to have effective fundraising and secure core funding. Also, another thing is not to be only dependent on grants from international donors. In some countries, and not with every organization and in every country, but there are opportunities to, I don't know how to say, to diversify your income. Not to only have these donor-provided grants, but for example, to start your merchandise. And this has actually worked quite well with Tbilisi Pride in Georgia. We've started our merchandise, and we've managed to sell some souvenirs and some things actually made by LGBTQI community members and entrepreneurs. And this has been, it is done on a small scale, but we are thinking how to grow it. So it's both economic empowerment of the queer entrepreneurs, but also it generates income for some of our activities. And some other organizations, they've organized concerts or charity events, and also done merchandise. And we should think some of the creative ways and maybe new ways how to generate the income. And also one initiative we have that is self-sustainable, and we don't have any grant from any donor from this event series. This is the Drag Ball, which is happening in Tbilisi, amazing queer art event series that we sell the ticket for the minimal price, but it generates the income to cover the cost of the drag ball, to cover the cost of the, to have proper income from the drag queens that participate in the events. And it has been amazing, a very new experience for us, but very interesting how to secure, how to have kind of self-sustainable projects without any international donor funding. And so, yeah, to plan ahead and to think about proactively financial sustainability, to maybe work with the people. We could also use the volunteers. We had several people, our foreign friends, who were saying, hey, you know, I can help, I can write, English is my native language, and I have some experience with writing project proposals or so on, and I could help out. And we used this help when we didn't have money to hire fundraising officer, you know, so to use also maybe all the contacts, all the volunteers we have around us. And also, as I mentioned, there are other organizations that could help us out if we don't have enough funding to organize this large-scale public opinion polls or research studies. And we could cooperate with these big NGOs or research companies to cover our topics as well, and to get some evidences that we are curious about. So again, cooperation and coordination and using the resources of our partners, this is very helpful, but also thinking about and planning our financial sustainable activities and vision, like how do we make sure that my organization or my movement has the income. We have another great example in Georgia. There is the leftist social movement that has opened a cafe for people, for especially for workers, for students, for the people who have the least income, who have who are marginalized, who are this cafe works. It has the minimal prices. And offers service and hosts students and workers, and it became a great place to gather, to socialize, to meet each other, to mobilize, to organize, and also to just, you know, as a student, to have a meal, to eat, and to have accessible prices. And it has been amazing project for the social movement to support their cause and to support their both financial sustainability, but also just community organizing. So this is what I can say about financial sustainability. This is the toughest part, of course. I've heard that the funding for, you know, all these progressive causes is kind of reducing. And if we compare the funding on the international level, the money that far-right groups, let's say, have, and the money that progressive groups have, to do the work, to support democracy work or human rights, etc., etc., there is a huge gap, and this is very unfair. But I always tell myself and my colleagues that money is not everything. Maybe, yes, there is a gap, but the truth is on our side. And this is very important. I think that it's not just money, but it's the truth that I believe is on our side. And we are standing on the right side of the history. So I'm a bit optimistic about our work, about the world. Maybe we are going through difficult times, but I believe this is temporary, and we will manage to go to this difficult times and come back even more strong and resilient.
Secret ingredients: be thankful and take a rest once in a while.
There's so many things I want to say, but I will say that thank you to all activists, all leaders, all people who are listening to this podcast or who are just out there doing amazing work. I'm really thankful to everyone, and usually it's so inspiring when I went to Megaphone conference and when I go to this regional or international event and I meet people who do the small things or big things for their communities in their environments. It's great to hear and meet these people, and I'm very thankful for everyone, for every single activist, civil society or NGO worker, for what you are doing. And I really hope that I will meet some of you who are listening to this discussion, and we will meet in person and do amazing things together as well. And I'm so happy for Poland that you have a bit different situation now after elections, and it's an improvement because we are seeing so much bad things and happening in many places. But in case of Poland, I think there is positive developments as well, and this is great. And I wish that same things will happen in Georgia soon. We have elections in 2024. I think many countries and even European Union have elections this year, and it's especially difficult times, I think, because of that. Election year is always super tense for everyone in many countries. And another thing I would say is have a rest, please. The biggest mistake I've made is that I think that, okay, I can save this country. And this one person, this individual can do so much that this entire country is on my shoulders. And if I lay down and have a rest, everything will fall down. No, please, you can have a rest. You can, for maybe a few weeks, disappear, and things will still go on. Nothing will be fully collapsed. And I know all of you is very important, and all of us are doing amazing, important work. But if you have a break, if you have a few weeks rest, nothing will collapse and things will still go on. So please don't think that you need to sacrifice yourself for everything. And this is a big mistake to sacrifice ourselves for the greater good. No, because it will lead us in a really desperate situation and mode, when then we will be no longer good for any process or fight. So please take care of yourself, have a rest. And I love all of you, and I hope to meet you in person. And good luck to everyone who is fighting for the good causes, I would say, for anything that's positive for the people, and for anything that's triggering positive social change. Thank you.